Welcome! You are listening to the CRM Success Show, where you will hear from CRM executives who have overseen some of the most interesting and complex CRM implementations. Your hosts, David Mosry and Kira Whitey, will be bringing you real stories, real insight. Follow along on social media for updates on new episode releases, exclusive content, and much more. Enjoy the show, and thanks for listening.
Welcome to the CRM Success Show, where we deep dive into CRM success and failure, delivering real stories with real impact. I'm Dave Masury.
Kira Whitey.
And today we're talking with Maxwell Mozes, or Max for short, Director of Revenue Operations at Walmart Business. So welcome, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate being here, Max. Thanks for your time. Very exciting to have someone with your background on the show. I'll let you start with an intro about yourself, your career to date, some of the companies that you've worked for up until now.
Sure. Again, thanks for having me. Going on 15 years of sales and operations experience. Right now, I'm the Director of Revenue Operations at Walmart Business, which is a B2B division inside of Walmart. Coming up on little year and a half at Walmart Business. Prior to that, I've been at a couple other companies. Most relevant to sales operations and the B2B world was some time that I spent at Amazon Business. I spent almost 10 years building out Amazon's B2B division and the sales operations that go along with it.
Nice. So in terms of your journey so far, let's take a second to focus on that. So you started out in sales.
Selling.
Yeah. So you were the enemy, as we say, a pesky salesperson, cold calling. But you were doing more strategic, right? You were doing like key accounts, that type of role.
It was when we really started in sales in my time at Amazon Business. It was at the beginning of the start of that business unit. Prior to Amazon, I was at a smaller startup called Level Up. That was focusing on key accounts, making sure that some of the larger partners were being handheld as we rolled out some white label and white glove implementations. That's how I moved into sales at Amazon Business. And so I joined Amazon as a individual seller, managing B2B companies and their relationships with Amazon Business. And I was a good salesperson. There are other people who are maybe better at the selling part of it. My skill set and the thing that I was good at was mechanizing and understanding the process and the data around it, which is what I used to my advantage to make sure that I was hitting my numbers.
Nice. Okay. So strategic selling, a little bit more kind of selling with insights as opposed to here's a list, here's a KPI number of cold calls to make, a bit more strategic.
Yeah, understanding what was working well and the insights from the wins that you would get, and then being able to replicate that by looking across the prospect base to understand who you can go after that would be as good of or a better fit based on what you had success with.
Good. So would you say that kind of approach was a good segue into moving into from sales more into that kind of sales ops mindset, being that kind of a bit more analytical in your go-to-market sales approach? Was a good platform to then dive more into sales ops and then eventually RevOps?
Which is how it happened. So I was in sales. They're of course using Salesforce as our CRM. And I was good at understanding the systems, right? How do you use Salesforce to your advantage? How do you utilize the reports or the dashboards? And the benefit with Salesforce is if your organization has set it up so that you as a user can build those yourselves, like you have the keys to the kingdom to build whatever you need to dive into the data that you have. So I
Mhm.
utilized that and would build reports or dashboards that I'd share out to the rest of the sales team and say, hey, here's a best practice that worked for me. Here's a report and a dashboard that pulls in the respective accounts that were successful for me. And if you go here, I've built it for you. You can go and it will pull up your own. Okay. So it was helping to scale the sales team and say, hey, this worked for me. Why don't I share this out to everyone else? And when they started having success with it, then you start down a conversation of, okay, this individual as a salesperson is good at understanding the systems and at sharing the practices there. So is there an ability or an opportunity here where as the sales operations organization expands to utilize that, right? So I took it upon myself, got Salesforce certified. I got ADM 201. And then as the sales operations team grew, when there was an opening, I raised my hand and said, look at the skill set that I have here. Here's the credentials that I actually have. And here's how it's been benefiting the sales team. So instead of utilizing me as an individual seller, which there's still deliverables there that were good, if it's focused and you can dive into the work as a sales operations individual and lean into that, it's a multiplier across the entire organization versus just particularly driving my sales.
Yep, makes sense. So there's a couple of takeaways I take from that. One is going the extra mile, doing a little bit more outside of your day job per se, being naturally curious and taking initiative. And the second is backing yourself when an opportunity presents.
Sure.
Those two aspects arguably played a large part in you securing that kind of more of that sales ops role, where you got involved with integrations, CRM implementations. Like I know you used Pardot account engagement at the time as well, and then moving up over the years. I'm guessing same mindset, just kind of going from sales ops to manager to senior manager over a course of 9 years during your time at Amazon.
Yeah, so you mentioned something which is important about taking on scope outside of the role. The reality is any company is going to have more work available to do than is being assigned to the individuals. And the people that identify that work that isn't being addressed or even asked of and take it on generally end up with more visibility across the organization because they're increasing their scope on their own without being asked for it. So if you can assume the responsibility, it's helpful to put a couple more feathers in your cap. And if it's aligned to the business goals, when those deliverables come through, it's easy for leadership to say, hey, who helped us out with that? Who was behind that? Right. So you have to look for the areas that maybe aren't being addressed in the company, but are out there and in need for someone to take on. You just step into it. Right.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's important. I think we're all guilty of sometimes maybe going through the motions, and but if you want to control your career or let your career control you, I think they're two different things, right? Sometimes you have to give before you get and take that initiative. So I like that. So just very quickly, OutSystems, spent a year there now, and now obviously you've hit the year mark at Walmart Business. We're going to dive into a little bit more of defining RevOps in a second, but just for our listeners, very, very quickly, Walmart Business, just tell us a little bit about where that sits with Walmart, the business side. What does that kind of role as director of RevOps entail?
So if you look at Walmart, there are endless business units. Okay, you have Walmart Business, you've got Walmart Connect, there's Walmart Data Ventures, I could go on. Right? each one of these business units is effectively its own company, right? They have a senior vice president or an executive vice president that's responsible for the entire entity and manages the top line P&L for that. So Walmart Business for us is the business to business version of Walmart.com. You and I might go to Walmart to buy, and I'm looking at a pencil holder or a Post-it note or anything like that. But companies in the United States, of which there's 33 million registered business entities, okay, they need to buy things from, in this case, Walmart Business. Okay? They can treat Walmart Business as their vendor of choice to come and purchase anything that they need. The real benefit that we offer to them is, if you look at a business, companies generally spend about 10% of their total annual revenue on things to run the business. Okay? There's more that they contract, and there's more that they may have planned through vendor engagements. But if they need to go as needed, grab something on an order because it's out of stock or not available, which is where we do well with playing in the industry right now, is called indirect spend. Around 10% of a company's annual revenue that is spent on indirect. When a company is spending that revenue, they often are, it's the 80-20 rule. There are 100 different vendors that they're going to get, 20% of their product that they need. A couple other vendors that might fill the other gap, but Walmart Business can we have the assortment of all of that entire range of vendors. So if a company right now is going to 50 different sites or 50 different stores or resources to purchase the business to business goods that they need, Walmart's SKU lineup is millions, tens of millions of available pieces of product. So they can come to Walmart, have all of that available. And for the business, they have visibility across how it's being spent, who at the company is purchasing it. They can set up approvals or share payment methods. So it's a consolidation and visibility potential for the company to have better financial visibility, understand how much they're spending on shipping, and save time and hassle on their day-to-day operations so that they can focus on their business.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wow. So before we jump into the RevOps, so you were in sales, right? And then you switched because you said you knew the systems, you understood the process. Can you give us a little bit more about that decision-making process? Were you like just fed up with sales, or like generally people who are good at sales, and it sounds like you were good at it, tend to stay in that because it's heavy commission based. It's very clear performance based, and if you can excel, right, that's great.
Sure.
So a lot of people, I would think, maybe I'm wrong, of course, that they wouldn't want to leave that. So what was your driving factor in saying, look, I think I want to move out of sales and more into the operations side?
So I definitely say that I was good, not great at sales. I think I could do it. If I looked across my peer group, there were and are people that are just incredible sales individuals. They have a knack for owning a conversation, driving follow-up with the customer or prospect, and allowing the customer to walk down the path towards the sale with them. I was good at that. For me, the way that I find the most enjoyment is by continuous learning. And at the time, Salesforce was the CRM of record for us. I was able to play in it on my own, build reports, build dashboards, get a certification, kind of scratch the itch for continuously educating myself. And that's what opened up the world for sales operations for me. Was, hey, here's a industry with lots of opportunity to continue to challenge myself in something that's really interesting and intriguing to me. And with at the time when I got certified in Salesforce, there's a long path in front of that, where you can choose kind of your adventure to decide what additional skill sets you want to build as a Salesforce admin or program manager or architect. And that's what was really interesting to me, was at that point in my career, just trying to continue to round out the areas of knowledge that I had in the sales world, versus become a specialist.
Okay, very interesting. So one more question on this. So how do you know what's system and what's raw talent? So in terms of like, if you're looking at your top performer, and you might say, okay, what's working for you, or you knew what's working for yourself. How do you really know that this is really, I can attribute this success either partially or wholly to the system or to the operations that it can then systematize, as opposed to this is just pure talent of the individual?
I think I might need a little clarification there. So you're saying, is it that they know how to mechanize the system that they're using to drive the sales, or do they just have raw sales talent?
Right, exactly. Because if you talk to a lot of salespeople, they're going to say, I'll pull the same numbers regardless of what tools you need. Give me, I'm just great. Right. And
sure.
Now, obviously, there's some middle ground there. That's not entirely true, but that tends to be the ego, the typical egotistical, let's say.
Sounds like something I would say, Maz. So I'll give you that one.
Well, we know it's all talent, Hero.
Yeah. So I think it takes an understanding of the sales individual too, right? So you need to have if you're looking at it just on the dashboards, it's not going to give you the answer. It gets into the practices that the individuals have, and the ones that excel have. What's interesting is, and this is still kind of a trope in the industry. Oftentimes, there's two, but it is not uncommon that you see the top sales reps sometimes don't log all of their activity regularly, right? And they do that because they might say, what do I need to log my activity for? I know I'm closing the deal. Maybe they have a process at the end of the week where they go back and log it all. But in my past experience, it takes some training for, hey, this is our process with our system. So if you have just raw skill set and a seller mindset, we need you to document that so that we can train the rest of our team on it and the rest of our org on how to replicate that for you.
Yeah. I think as someone who's very concerned with user adoption, I'm sure you are, myself too, as someone who implements systems. One of the biggest pushbacks you get is, you're making me do this work so someone else can benefit. And I think that's kind of what you're hitting on there. So we always try to push, or at least I do, no, this benefits you.
Sure.
And then you have the sales guy. There are some of them incredibly talented that just never forget anything. I'm sure you met these people.
Yeah.
Right? Definitely not me, right? I got to write everything down. But they just never forget anything, and they know every sale, and every person and every conversation, and so it's interesting.
I find the ones that really excel are particularly process oriented. They have their day planned, and yes, you have to explain why it's beneficial for sales to utilize the tools that are in front of them. they also take it upon themselves to dive into it, understand the use case, and then share why to their peers. So they're champions of the systems and the technology, and they talk about why they're successful and how they reach that success, and have a plan around their approach for it, and it's regularly repeatable.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's hop on to let's say our core subject. So RevOps. So a lot of people, when they think of RevOps, think of different things. Why don't you tell us, what you think most people think of when they think RevOps or revenue operations, and what it means to you.
Yeah, revenue operations is kind of this term that from what I've seen, been around for a while. In the last 5 years, maybe even less than that, a lot of organizations are using it as an expanded catch-all for a handful of functions within an organization. Okay? If I'm stripping it down, for me, revenue operations is ensuring visibility and efficacy behind all of the efforts and motions that drive revenue for a business. Okay? So it's supporting the sales team, supporting the finance team, supporting the marketing team, and supporting any areas of the business that are tied to identifying, capturing, and then owning and retaining revenue.
So that sounds like all of CRM, customer service, marketing, sales. So is there anything in CRM not?
So I don't know if I would say so much customer service. I think I do partition that a little bit, where the service aspect of the customers, I do like to treat that as a wholly contained entity. Customer success, absolutely. And it's another term that is still evolving, and you can talk to 5 leaders and they'll give you 5 definitions. But for me, if we're looking at the areas of RevOps, like within customer success, it's pretty self-explanatory. Making sure your customers are successful. Okay? Some of that includes when you have a customer join as a customer. When they move from a prospect to a customer, how are they brought onto the system or platform? So ensuring it's a dedicated team, right, that is separate from sales but supports and is involved in the pre-work to deliver that customer. And it's ensuring that they have a good onboarding onto the platform and that they are walked through what the benefits are of utilizing the partnership, and that they understand where they can go to or how to best use the relationship going forward. It's maintaining the customer success.
Okay, cool. So so it's interesting, and maybe you can clarify a bit, that you would say customer service kind of falls out, because I would think anecdotally that customer service really defines the customer satisfaction, because when you have an issue, you call in, and if that's a miserable experience, that's how you lose that client, like, forever.
So they are a parallel partner. Okay, so if we're looking at customer service or customer support or customer care, as some companies might define it, those are functions of the customer relationship that sales or the customer success team might not have the permissions or the access to solve. So if there's a back-end issue from a technical perspective with a customer's relationship with you, that's customer support and that's customer service. There's absolutely a channel of communication between the sales team and the success team on that customer's experience. And if there needs to be an escalation, they'll loop in sales or customer success. But the resolution of the customer's problem, in some of our cases, where did my order go? Or I need my tax exemption applied correctly. Right? I'm speaking specifically to B2B retail in this case. That is a customer care and customer support function for how do we resolve this issue and process a refund or locate an item on behalf of the customer. Sales and the customer success individuals, their time is most valuably spent on pursuing and maintaining the relationships and helping grow those relationships and accounts. And the customer care team's time, which is where their expertise is most valuably spent on resolving the customer issues.
Yeah, that's actually quite brilliant. I never thought of it like that. So essentially what you're saying, to summarize, is you have the customer service rep who's just dealing tactically with the issue, but then there's let's say an account executive, customer success person who, if I'm not happy, I can override the customer service rep, go to my main contact, and they'll maintain that relationship. And even if the customer service rep is completely fumbling the ball, that relationship manager will be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We got it. I'm on top of it. Don't worry about it." And that will, I guess, recover and maybe even build a relationship more than it was before that, because they know you care.
And oftentimes the relay or the handoff to customer care is happening through that individual, through the sales individual or through the customer success individual, right? Customers do not like being told, hey, you got to hang up and call this other line. And from there, we don't know what happens, right? It's got to be a handoff or a shepherded conversation where both of the parties are involved. And once there's confidence that the customer care individual is resolving it, then the account executive or customer success manager, they can fade back to their work.
While we're on the topic of defining RevOps, I want to try something slightly new. Surprise to both of you, but just on the topic of common misconceptions around RevOps, and I want to get a strongly disagree, no opinion, agree, strongly agree type response to a couple of statements. First is RevOps is just sales ops with a new name.
Disagree. Strongly disagree.
All right. Let's say give a sentence.
Give an example.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah. So professional services or customer success is not sales ops, right? But revenue operations does have an umbrella over those areas. Okay. Sales operations, as I see it, is these titles and these job functions are self-explanatory, right? It's the operations behind sales. What are our SLAs and SOPs? What are our rules of engagements? How do we define the opportunity flow and mechanize sales force? And within sales operations, there's of course an admin and a dev team and a technical team. But there's other pieces there for revenue operations that spans customer success or professional services if your organization has grown to that level of complexity. And outside of that, RevOps also has a umbrella across go-to-market strategy or enablement. And in our case, and this is within my team at Walmart Business, there's learning and development. So there's continued education for our sales team. How do we educate our sales organization, make sure that they're trained on products and understand our approach to market and the value proposition? And that is not in the silo of sales ops. I see sales operations as operationalizing the sales team's day-to-day activities and what they're working on.
Okay. Just to play devil's advocate, Amazon, back at your time at Amazon, a lot of sales ops titles, whereas Walmart is RevOps title.
Correct. Yeah.
Would you say was there any black and white difference between the two roles and companies as a follow-up to that? Common
Sure.
misconception that they're the same thing.
Yeah. So at my time at Amazon, it evolved, and it at one point started with sales operations. Then, as Amazon grew and they established a professional services division and professional services management to maintain customer relationships with the complex offering, professional services came under sales operations. Eventually, the ProServe organization grew large enough that it was appropriate to have a senior leader own the entire professional services function. And it came back out. Right? And sales ops was focused on CRM and program management and day-to-day mechanizing and operating the sales team. Professional services was its own. So, and now this is post my time there. Now they've brought in effectively a vice president, and the vice president now owns what they've titled I think GTMO is what they titled it, go-to-market operations.
Okay.
And Amazon Business is using that as their umbrella term for sales, professional services, customer success, right? It's where you see some companies call it go-to-market ops, some companies call it sales ops, and it does everything. And some companies have said, yeah, we're going to call that revenue operations because, and this is my opinion too, like it works at Walmart Business calling it revenue operations because all of the functions underneath that purview drive revenue.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, thanks for that clarification, Max. All right, strongly agree, strongly disagree, agree, somewhere in the middle. RevOps is only about tools and dashboards.
Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. It's also about process and enablement and providing insights. And you can take a report or a dashboard. It doesn't mean anything unless you're gleaning something from it. So you have to translate what the report and the dashboard is showing you into an actionable insight that you can do at the company, right? What are you going to do with that report or that dashboard? What's it saying? What's the chart saying, right? They're not speaking to you, but that's why you have minds inside of the revenue operations organization that focus on sales insights and performance, that you can glean that and say, what are we going to take forward here?
Mm-hmm. Okay. RevOps is only for large enterprises. Now, you've done it in 2 large enterprises, so maybe they're a bit biased there, but do you think it's only for large enterprises?
No, of course not, right? Like revenue operations is going to be for an enterprise of any size. I think it does make sense when you have a large enterprise calling it revenue operations because there's enough functions within the organization that can be rolled up under a single threaded leader or director. Right? There are a lot of times at a smaller organization, and this is just from me speaking to individuals in my network, but there's probably at a startup that is 20 or 50 people. It's a one-person show. They're owning all of the functions that I defined in my organization, right? Customer success, sales data and performance reporting, sales operations, go-to-market operations, and go-to-market planning and market planning and enablement. They're a one-person show for it, but when you get to the enterprise size and you have teams of people that are owning those functions, that's where I see it helpful to call it a revenue operations division versus at a small enterprise, it might be called RevOps, it might be called sales operations, and they're wearing 10 different hats.
So how would you advise a small company that to start thinking about operations instead of just sales? Because that's how they tend to think of it is I need to hire a salesman, I need to hire
Sure.
a
Yeah,
CRO.
so the look, I think the industry best practice is that you hire operations ahead of sales, because who's going to build it out, right? It's very common for an organization to have a sales team, and as they expand their CRM function or their operations function, the person who's raising their hand becomes the Salesforce admin or a program manager, right? Which is not so different than how I described my growth path at Amazon Business, right? I was a sales individual. I raised my hand. I took on some additional responsibility, and it grew into a division that we were able to build out, right, with the resources that Amazon had. You need top line, like senior leadership team needs to be aligned there, right? So the chief operating officer or chief sales officer, or at a small company, it might just be the CEO and the COO that are looking forward. They need to understand the needs of a sales organization and what it takes to deliver results. Okay. Of course, it's hard to scale, but you need somebody whose time, I mentioned this before, it's about how time is valuably spent at an organization. So sales is best focused on pursuing and maintaining customers, right? That's their skill set, and that's where you'll see the most value delivered back to the organization. You also need an individual who is not having the switching cost of changing their focus, but can think about what systems do we need? How do we need to structure our data model? And what mechanisms do we need to put in place? Somebody needs to be focused on that, and a partner and peer to the sales individuals and sales leaders. But having that back and forth, if it's one individual, can slow down rate to speed to market.
We're going to cover a little bit about the data model with some examples how Walmart do it next. But since we're having a little bit of fun on the misconceptions, I got 3 more for you, and then we'll move on, and we'll whittle through these a little bit back to back. So you can hire one person and call it RevOps. You kind of answered that question just then, but what's your thoughts?
Who do I hire for that?
Or what the statement was, you can hire just one person and call it RevOps.
Do I agree or disagree with that?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that because that's asking too much of one person, to be honest. You could call I might call that something different. I might call that, I don't really know what I would call that. I having one person with a title of RevOps is difficult. It puts a lot on that individual's shoulders and doesn't allow them to focus on an area that they can drive forward. You often need identified programs and initiatives and resources behind those to combine something and say, hey, this is a revenue operations function.
I think you were about to say it's a team sport, right? You know, the analogy jack of all trades, master of none springs to mind for that. Okay, cool. RevOps own revenue. Yeah,
I agree.
Agree with that? Good stuff. Nice and easy. And finally, RevOps. This is going to be an interesting one for you. RevOps is just a trend or a buzzword?
Oh, I strongly disagree. I strongly disagree. We see it in the market where it's more and more companies are identifying this as a needed function. I think revenue operations was one of the faster growing titles across. Take the LinkedIn stat for new individuals in the market with those titles. Companies are recognizing that it's a holistic function within the organization that needs to partner and drive across the business. So it's here to stay.
Yeah, I'd agree. When we was doing a bit of prep for this episode, actually, I was curious as well around kind of when RevOps really started to take off. The earliest use I could find for it was kind of 2015, 2016. I saw a white paper. I think it was Forrester Research, I think, or Bain, one of the bigger kind of market research companies. I think it was like late just before pandemic 2019, I think, where there's starting to see like white papers, the ideology, the philosophy on RevOps, what that looks like, what it actually is, and so on. So I think you nailed it. Last 5-6 years, it's really kind of taken off. And I'd agree with you as well. It's here to stay. I was talking to Maz yesterday, and saying like it's one of the skill sets that we're seeing. After admins and devs, maybe it's like the next highest demand, or we need a RevOps analyst, or so on. So, or this role sits in our revenue operations team, right? It's something we're starting to see a lot more on a daily basis, let's say. Good. Thanks for playing along, Max. So moving on to let's talk a little bit about Walmart. Just in general, like how are B2B companies using Salesforce? How do Walmart use Salesforce? And then let's move into the kind of 4 areas that you oversee, and we'll tackle them individually, relating back to Salesforce. But let's start nice and easy. How are Walmarts currently using Salesforce?
So we use our Salesforce instance. Sales isn't just sales is not the only user of it, right? The primary user, and that's something that I drive internally, is primary user of our CRM is our sales organization. So core function is to make sure that we have our database of prospective and existing customers inside of it, that we utilize it to manage and forecast and drive our pipeline of opportunities, and that we use it in partner with other systems that go outside of Salesforce to conduct our business report. Okay. We also use it for a product relationship. We use it for our legal reviews, for customer legal reviews, right? So there's other teams across the organization that are stakeholders and have process or flows built into Salesforce as it relates to sales, right? Sales is always the primary user of it. And then if there's functions or ways of working that tie into the sales process, those stakeholders are involved and utilize it in their day-to-day to conduct their side of the house.
Cool. So taking the 4 areas, I know there's 4 areas, just for our listeners who maybe haven't checked out your LinkedIn prior to the episode, 4 areas that you mainly have responsibility for: customer success and onboarding. Number 2, go-to-market strategy and operations. 3 is sales planning. 4 is data technology reporting. Let's start with the first one, customer success and onboarding. What does that entail? And again, how, if any way, are you leveraging the Salesforce platform to achieve that?
So our customer success and onboarding team makes sure that when a new organization or existing organization, but when somebody comes in and establishes a relationship with Walmart Business, customer success team, onboarding team, they make sure that they have a good first experience, right? First impressions last. So we need to make sure that that customer has a good step into the relationship. Do they know how to use the offering? Have they been given a walkthrough if they want it? And if they have questions in the future, do they know who their point of contact is for a complex customer issue, right? Can we make sure that long-term our customers are successful, okay? We have our customer success team assigned across our territories. So there's dedicated customer success managers that support sales individuals across the territories and become a known point of contact that's customer facing for the accounts in those regions.
The next one I think is go-to-market strategy and operations.
Sure.
Yeah, so what exactly did that entail? Is that more than just marketing?
So as you move into new markets or as you move into new segments, there's an approach of who are we going to go after? Why are we going to go after them? And what's the size of the opportunity? So go-to-market strategy and operations focuses on the segments and the verticals of our customers and how we're going to approach them. So if we're moving into a new industry or new vertical that we're targeting as a new prospective customer base, what's the market opportunity? What's the total addressable market? How do we approach it? So do we go with direct sales? Do we do events? Do we partner with marketing to pursue into the market? And what's that messaging look like from a marketing and automated approach? On the other side, our sales team needs to know how to speak to that. So the operations behind go-to-market is, do we have the correct talk track and the scripting and the tools available to our sales team so that when we pursue into that segment or that vertical, sales knows how to talk to the value prop, that they've been versed on the market itself and the benefit that those customers would get from a relationship with us, and is there consistency in how each individual sales rep goes about their day to drive into that market, right? What would not be a great experience is if you had 10 sales individuals all approaching their prospective customer base in a different way. So it's when we go after a segment or go after a new market, how are we going to message them? And what's the process and who are we going to go after so it's consistent across our territories?
So just to put an example on this, if I'm understanding correctly, you'll say something along the lines of, we're going to target hotels and motels, and we're going to pitch them with sheets, pillows, blankets, something like that.
That's very specific. I think in our case, it's using the hotel example, which isn't far off. Okay, hotels are a type of customer that we serve pretty well. It may be that we're talking to them about specific product categories that we can help fulfill, but it's also that we want to make sure that we're going after, that our sales team is pursuing the correct type of profile of a hotel that we know we can serve. So is it a multi-location? Is it a chain? Is it, and when we have conversations with them, not so much, hi, this is the product or the category that you might be able to purchase, but this is how you, as a hotel, can look at Walmart Business and have a relationship with us for your needs. What do you need as a hotel from business to business supplies, right? Do you need a unlabeled bag? We do grocery pretty well, right? Do you need unlabeled food product so that you can stock it in your cafeteria in the hotel, right? Understanding what their use cases are and then giving them the tools and the talk tracks to manage those relationships.
So obviously there's a lot of overlap between these four areas. For example, go-to-market strategy that you just talked about, with sales planning and enablement as well. So again, for context, we're talking about Sales Cloud primarily. Salesforce Sales Cloud, which has a lot of native planning tools, for example, to help with territory design, setting quota. One of them being, for example, Salesforce Maps. Is that, or maybe it's rebranded since to territory planning? I'm not sure, but is that something that you're using? What from a technology stack goes into the sales planning piece with Salesforce? What are you using?
Sure.
What are some of the products?
We do use we use Salesforce Maps. A lot of territory planning, regardless of how large the organization is initially managed in an Excel file. And you're mapping that out, and it is a grueling Excel file. But you have to have a trade-off between where you decide to put yourself on the hook for a recurring bill for technology, or if you can do it yourself with resources that are available. Okay. We utilize Salesforce Maps, and we cut our territories based on region and state. But I'm also comfortable if we can do it correctly with other types of file management.
Would you, or do you use products like Salesforce Spiff, for example, on the commission side? Is that something that's maybe come up, or you're using?
Right now, that's homegrown.
Okay.
For our incentive management, we might get to a point where we drive forward with that. But right now, our the way that we manage that is homegrown based off of the performance metrics and reporting that we drive.
Nice. What about like any like AI stuff? Are you using like Einstein AI to help sellers with risk deal gap analysis or additional support, quick, common, frequently asked questions, that type of stuff?
When I can get security approval to integrate an AI tool, we utilize it. That's a big win. Okay. There's a few established partners that we have. So for Walmart Business, like Walmart has a relationship with Microsoft Copilot, and that's an adopted AI tool. Took a while to get there, and there's of course pursuit of some other tools, but we're particularly cautious around that, and also like to do our own homegrown for that.
Yeah, so that comes to your last segment, sales data, technology reporting. I would think you guys have a whole AI team, a fairly big one.
We do. So the sales tech and performance reporting and data management, that part of my revenue operations organization focuses on systems and integrations. So you're right. We are we're treading pretty carefully into what types of technology we give access to our data. For us, like our customers, number one, customer first, always. And we have pretty rich data that is sensitive, right? So looking at it from that perspective, it often is a question of, hey, do we want to integrate something, or would we rather build our own? And there's an entire silo at Walmart that focuses on tech and data engineering, and they sit parallel to my sales, performance, and data team, but they help us when we need to go down the path of a security approval for that.
So is it not more lax because you're B2B, I would think?
No, it's not.
Really?
But it's one of those types of relationships or approaches rather, where yes, we have B2B, we have B2C. We're treating it as one approach for how we look at integrating AI tools, and the default is the more sensitive, which is B2C, right? So even though it's B2B, we still have people's names and contacts and phone numbers and their business data, and we want to make sure that it's protected, right? Like it's in the best interest of making sure that our data is sound and stays ours. So we keep a pretty, it's pretty stringent for us.
Yeah, I think
Which can be a challenge, right? Like, but I've adopted that mindset of like it's for the greater good of our customer base.
Right. So there are two parts to it, right? Obviously, you want your data secure. You don't want it getting out because a malicious user can use that data in a malicious way. It's somewhat different than using it to train AI in one, a responsible way, but then two, in a way that doesn't offend your consumer base. Let's say, I'm sure you've heard this story. It's probably 10 years old. I don't believe it was Walmart. I don't remember the retailer that it happened to. It was something along the lines of product recommendation engine. There's a product recommendation engine that was built, and they sent out recommendation for like prenatal products to a young girl who was like 16, and his father was absolutely irate and called the company, and it's a big company. I don't remember who it was, and like really blast them, like just really gave it to them. But the funny part was that they were right. She was pregnant, this kid, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it. But it's interesting, though, even though they were right, they were spot on, it was still an offensive messaging. And that's one of those stories. It kind of goes hand in hand with the story of, the kids who go into a bank and they push them out, but their father has a ton of money with the bank, right? That kind of stuff, which is big in the banking industry, that really kind of epitomizes, how aggressive do you want to be with your, how do I say, your knowledge of your consumers, and like sometimes it gets a little bit scary.
Yeah, and I think for us, we're still using an analytical approach to that. So there is an analytics team that sits parallel to me. I've got a peer who runs our entire analytics division, and they glean insights like what you're describing, and then action a seller, a sales individual, to manage that conversation, right? We're not at the point where we're activating an AI technology to do that for us. We're still making sure that we understand what insights and analytics are being seen and surfaced, and then we're making human decisions behind it, which is often the best combination to lead with. Like, let's look at our data. Can we use some data and insights there, and maybe some AI to source and compile the data, and then a human measure against it to drive that further.
So for some of the more technical focused listeners, myself included, you tell us a bit about your data stack. What do you use for your data warehouse, your pipes?
Sure. So I will probably get some of this wrong. So I'll ask for forgiveness from my data engineering partners who sit parallel to me. I believe it's called Apache and Kafka are the tools that are our data store, right? They're data lake, data warehouse. I'm going to get those wrong. Okay. But we have upstream data that feeds all of .com. Okay? We pull that down into a B2B specific database or data lake. Okay? And that gets organized and tagged and associated. And from there, it actually comes down from a secondary into a tertiary database that then feeds Salesforce for us. Okay? We do that so that it minimizes holes, right? We don't want Salesforce, which is a third party for us, should not be touching anything that's close to housing our primary source of data, right? We should pull out just the data that we should identify what data from our master data warehouse is business to business. We should pull that into another database downstream that is business to business data and only relevant to our sales and marketing efforts. And from there, that should feed Salesforce. We have, from an analytics perspective, we are a user of Looker.
Oh, cool.
Which is an analytics tool.
Yeah, by Google.
And we, from a sales perspective, we utilize for something like content management. I mentioned we use Sales Dialer. Okay. Every sales organization uses LinkedIn Sales Navigator as a prospecting tool. And we utilize Sales Loft, which is a content management and engagement platform.
Just a quick follow-up question to that before we move on. If you're only allowed to use one tool, let's say mass budget cuts, you can only use one tool. What do you think your sales team would want to keep hold of?
Outside
from
of Salesforce.
Yeah, aside from Salesforce.
If I'm only using one tool, I'd probably go with, regardless of tool, if it's for sales activity logging or prospecting or anything like that.
Let's say to identify prospects, engage prospects.
It's got to be LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So just to kind of wrap up, Max. Let's talk about we talked about kind of the past, the current. Let's quickly focus on the future. Where do you see the role of RevOps in the general market, but also for you at Walmart, changing, if at all, over the next couple of years?
I see it getting more financially driven. It's in the name, revenue operations. Okay. Right now, for Walmart Business, for a lot of companies, that's about driving revenue through a sales channel, through a marketing channel. Where I see that changing or evolving into the future is enhancing the understanding of how that revenue affects the business. So like getting deeper into where the revenue hits the P&L sheet and how that revenue affects the top line and bottom line reporting of the organization versus just having it as a holistic, here's the revenue that we're bringing in. Like you need to understand and drive insights and evolution into what the meaning is behind the revenue that you're bringing in.
Cool. So if you're a small shop or have a small company, and you're looking to take your advice and say, okay, I need to hire RevOps before I hire a sales team, what do you look for in that crucial first hire? What should they be looking for?
So this is RevOps. It's in the context of RevOps. I think this is just maybe a comment for me as a hiring manager who conducts hundreds of interviews. I look for agency. So the individual should have agency themselves, right? They should be able to be shown, here's the goal. You are here. The goal, you can define the goal from the business perspective. Business leadership needs to be able to tell everyone what the goal is. And the individual needs to show that they have the ability to figure it out. Like everything can be figured out, and individuals that excel, particularly in RevOps, can identify the stakeholders to loop in to the conversation, drive the initiative from identifying the root cause or the goal and saying, here's who we need to take into the conversation. Here's the next steps that these people need to take. And I'm going to hold all of these people accountable along that journey so that we can make sure that we're making progress towards delivering it.
Have you heard of Joel Spolsky?
No.
No. He actually wrote a book based on a blog article. It's called Smart and Get Things Done. It's exactly what you're describing. You have a brain on their head.
Sounds like I'd like that book.
Yeah, they need to be able to get things done. There are some people that are very smart but seem to never accomplish anything, and then you have people that will work and work and work, but in a kind of dumb way. Let's say. So yeah, you want the balance between those two. So I guess what you would look in any solid hire.
How would you...
Look, the background behind that is that they also need to have the mindset for revenue operations, which is thinking about the customer experience, having a data-driven mindset, and understanding how you can interpret results and what you can do from those results, and then anticipate the next step, which kind of goes back to just getting things done. But knowing if we take this step, then what? Then what? Just looking around corners is important to know what's coming and have something ready so that when something comes up, you can act on it versus get caught unawares.
How would you interview for that, Max? Would you be looking at candidates to kind of tell you a story, or would we go more kind of scenario, hypothetical? If you were given scenario ABC, how would you go about it? Is it those types of questions? Because you're not going to see that in a resume. So how would you go about making sure someone has that mindset?
Yeah, I'm not a practitioner of. I'm not a major practitioner. I think it is helpful to have scenario-based questions where you say, hey, here's what you have. How would you approach this? I think that does give some insight for understanding if people can just get stuff done and if they have agency. I am a student of behavioral questions. So tell me about a time, give me an example when, things like that. And for me, it's helpful to understand times that people may have made a trade-off between delivery and quality. So did you have to move up a deadline or move a deadline back? And how did that affect the quality of what you delivered? Talk to me about disagreements and how you worked through those disagreements with individuals across the organization. Talk to me about times that you had a sense that something was off, but no one really knows what's going on. Maybe it's that a metric isn't showing up as you would expect because the business hypothesis was slightly different and the result isn't there. It's not that there's an answer, but everyone's spidey sense is kind of tingling. How did you drive to the root cause and figure out what was the problem there? And through an answer from that, like a great answer says, here's how I drove the root cause. And here's what we actioned after we figured out what the problem was. So here's how I peeled back the layers. We identified this was the problem. Then I brought in this group to solve it. We resolved it in this way. And from there, our learnings from that allowed us in the future to address it going forward and learn from that experience. Like that to me shows if an individual can have critical thinking and work across an organization to drive resolutions.
Last question. AI. How will AI change RevOps, in your opinion?
So right now I'm asking my team, all members of my team, to use it in their day-to-day. The current use case for us, I like to use it as an assistant, okay? Like to do things like build Excel sheets or to forecast out and do mathematical calculations, or to build slides. Okay. So the current use cases, given the security sensitivity that I discussed for what I can give it access to, the use case for me and my team right now is use this to accelerate your job, right? What are the tasks that are repeatable and manual? Set AI after that and mechanize it for you. Okay. I think where we'll go is once we can confirm the access that the AI has to our sensitive data is okay, it needs to drive insights and analysis and serve up suggestions on where we can continue to go in the market and how we can pursue into different customer segments.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Big thank you, Max, for your time and sharing your story, your personal story, and some of the, I guess, beliefs on RevOps and where RevOps is and where it can go. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Max.
For our listeners, do not forget to subscribe to the CRM Success Show for more episodes featuring awesome leaders like Max, who are living and breathing the Salesforce ecosystem. You can follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for exclusive content and future episodes. Thank you.